and just look at me.
Okay. My name's Susan Swain, S-U-S-A-N, S-W-A-I-N.
And your title is?
I am a Sister of Loretto. I've been a Sister of Loretto for over 40 years. And so I have S-L at the end of my name.
And so let's talk about Escuela.
Okay.
And how it came to be, because you were one of the founders, correct?
Right, I was. Well, I moved into the neighborhood in 1985 on 33rd and Pecos, so it was the house directly west of the church, and it belonged to the church. And Sister Alicia Ramirez and I moved in and put the house back together with Elmer's glue and cardboard. And it was the hood then. It was a pretty tough neighborhood. So we right away joined Guadalupe Parish and became active members of the parish. And Father Marshall Gorley was the pastor there, who was extremely involved in social justice issues. And the big issues in the parish were immigration, youth violence, and the dropout rate. And so one of the things that we talked about a lot was education and schools, and how it would be great to have a school in that neighborhood. So that was in the mid-'80s. And so time went on, and I taught for 2 years at St. Pius out in Aurora. And Sister Alicia was working in labor delivery at Denver General. So after a couple of years, we were evicted from the house because they wanted to bring in the sisters from Mexico. So we moved to a house on 38th and Federal, so we were still very much in the hood, and stayed in Guadalupe Parish. And Marshall continued his conversation about a school. And I can even remember one summer night we drove around the neighborhood trying to look at buildings that might work for schools. And we went over to the Theatines. He was a Theatine priest, and they had a abandoned school that was empty over where Fun City used to be on Colorado Boulevard. And we just kind of dreamed about, wouldn't it be great to have a school? So after my time at St. Pius, I went to St. Mary's Academy, became principal of the lower school. And St. Mary's started talking about getting some of the girls from the Guadalupe neighborhood to come to the high school. And so a group of us went and talked to some parishioners and to Marshall. And their basic message was, we want a great education, but we want it here in our neighborhood. We don't want to have to go to Cherry Hills. So things kind of just died down at that point, and St. Mary's really had very beginning conversations about opening a satellite school, but financially that was not an era to be able to do things like that easily.
So what was it that you saw in your neighborhood when you were living in the hood, as you call it? What did you see that really got things working for you?
Well, I think just a lot of kids who were worried about what they were getting in education. After Alicia left Denver General, she became a Denver public school nurse, and she was a nurse at Bryant Webster, which is the feeder school, the public school for that area. And these kids weren't going anywhere. The kids at North, the graduation rates were so poor. And Marshall used to become very frustrated with the number of funerals that he was having of young men who were killed violently. And it all seemed like such a waste.
So these were conversations, too, that you were having with kids in the neighborhood?
Yes, some. And mainly with the parishioners and with Marshall and the involvement that we had in the parish.
So you personally saw some things happen?
Yes, and we didn't work with any of the kids directly in the neighborhood, but it was just a feel in the neighborhood. It was a tough place to live in those days, and you just wondered what was going to happen to these kids growing up. And at that point, St. Patrick's was a food bank and also a counseling center. St. Patrick's Church had a counseling center in the school.
So let's go back to the start of Escuela then. There was a steering committee that was formed?
Well, even before that, that it's alive and well and still there today. And also watching board members come and go. We've had many board members over the years, and there's such dedication and commitment, no matter how long they stay, and real awe at being involved and a part of something that makes such a difference in children's lives. And I think anybody who comes to that school sees that. I think those Escuela 101s do that, you know, where people leave those and say, whoa, you know, did you hear that child? You know, and I think that there is great awe that education can happen on a shoestring in that neighborhood. And we know the public schools, something's not working somewhere. And yet, if Escuela could be a model of how you make something work, be a positive influence for children, and make them succeed. And, you know, our graduates are now in college. And so it's a success. In the beginning, we had nothing to prove that we were a success. It took a good 7, 8, 9 years before we could have test scores or whatever people figure is a measure of success. And I think that graduation class a couple of years ago where all the kids went on to college, that was like the test point.
Now, do you always have a smile on your face, or is it only when you talk about Escuela?
No, because I can talk the same about St. Mary's and where I was in Kansas City. So I just think it's the awe of watching children learn. And since I've been sick, I've had former students, these are kids I taught in the 70s, write me letters. And what they learned and what they were instilled with, you know, makes me know we did it. Those of us who really educated children with our hearts left them with something for their entire lives. And it's really how to be a learner, more than facts. It's what it means to be a learner, and at Escuela, what it means to respect your culture, to love your language, and to hold that with you for your whole life. And whether you're Hispanic or Anglo, you still had that love and respect for both cultures.
That's beautiful. Are you okay on time? 'Cause I need to ask just a couple more questions.
You bet.
Can we talk about your health?
Mm-hmm.
Just to update everyone.
Okay.
Where are you, and tell me what's going on?
Well, it's almost been a year ago since I totally unexpectedly was diagnosed with cancer. I had no symptoms, nothing. And I started on chemo in April, knowing that it wouldn't cure me. I have squamous cell carcinoma, and it's in the bones. Well, it's on the bones, on the lungs, and on the lymph nodes. So I always think of it kind of hovering on instead of in. And I knew from the beginning there was no cure for this. And the hope was that chemo would shrink things for a time of remission. So I went on chemo in April, and every PET scan after that saw a little improvement, but always new cancers everywhere. And so then in December, I started getting some pain in my side. And so the doctor says it's either shingles or the cancer. So I took the shingle pills and then went and had a PET scan. And that PET scan came back with cancer everywhere. And so we decided to stop the chemo. So I've been off chemo since probably late December. And I'm here, and, you know, I feel good. I don't know why or how long. As the doctor says, if I say, well, you know, how long will this take? And she says, that's a God thing. And it is. It's a God thing. And, you know, I have all kinds of people praying for miracles. And I know that the miracles are the fact that I feel good and that I continue on with my daily routine. And
Well, you look
I'm
fat.
here and alive.
You do. You look great,
Mhm.
and you have great energy. And
I do. And the pain's gone, so I figure it was shingles. Blame it on that.
David mentioned to me something about how you equate your health or your battle, I don't know what your words are, with Escuela somehow, and I may be putting words into your
Yeah.
mouth. Does that mean something to you? That
No,
accomplishments?
no. I mean, Escuela is an important part of my life, and those are the things I will miss. But I don't I don't connect those two things. I hope that Escuela is getting healthier as I get sicker, if that's some connection. But it's been an important part of my life, and I'm grateful it's where it is, and it is in as good a shape as it is. I credit David a lot with the continuation of the health of the school. I mean, he has become so involved and committed to Escuela that I think that is a great benefit. And everyone who works with the school has been so involved.
And is there anything you want to say to the community of Escuela? And I think we all hope that it's there for a long, long
Right,
time.
right.
Any kind of message?
That's my hope, is that we would, there'll be a 20th celebration and a 25th celebration, and then we'll go on from there. I've always been in schools. I've only really been involved in 2 schools for lengths of time, the one in Kansas City. And that was a school, it was a K-12, very innovative school that had its moment in time in the 70s, where it was just the most creative place there was in the world. And the school closed in 1984. And that was a sadness, but it's also a reality to me that it had its moment in time. Then I come to St. Mary's Academy that has been here since 1864. And I think, wow, 1864, think of all the struggles that I know the school went through. And I'm sure there were some times when the sisters said, let's shut the doors. How can we do this? I just know in the history of all our schools, when times got tough, the sisters didn't eat, and the boarders did in the schools. And so I think of that with Escuela as well. There are some really hard times that we've come through, but people are willing to make the sacrifices to have something great continue. And I truly believe that Escuela will continue. It may not continue in the same place. It may look different. It may hopefully go through 8th grade, which was our original plan. That's the only part of our original plan that didn't pan out in the end. But I think it'll be there. It's an important place for kids. And I think as there are more and more graduates of Escuela in the world will come to know who we are. I think the country already knows who we are. So.
Is there anything else we didn't ask? Jean,
I think so.
Barrett,
I got a question. Can you take us through opening day, first day, like what it felt like?
I can.
And just tell it to Ann, and then just how you felt.
Okay. In the summer, right before we opened, we interviewed the parents, and part of the agreement of having your kid at Escuela was that you were involved as a parent, that every parent would participate with the child's education, and every parent would pay something, depending on what they were able to do. So there was a lot of parent involvement, and we did a lot of meeting of parents and talking with kids during those July and August months. And then as the first day came closer and closer, it was exciting. I can remember I left St. Mary's that day and came down to Escuela on that opening day, and to just see those kids there and to see this reality. And it was only 3 groups of kids. It was only kindergarten, first and second. So it was a small little group of kids. But it was there, and I don't know if you know Tony Vigil, but he's just this warm, loving person with this great smile. And there he was, pretty proud of this, that he kind of got hooked into at the end, but really took it on. And the 3 teachers that we had hired, and it was just a special time. And I also went back for the last day that year, and to see the celebration of that year. And I still see there's a picture of Tony, and it was when the school was dedicated, which was a little bit into the first year, on the front steps, not on the 34th Street side, but on the Pecos side. And there was a ribbon across, and Tony is cutting the ribbon, and all these kids are just crushed around him. And that is kind of my thinking of that opening of Escuela and the first days.
a big moment.
Big moment. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
That brings up another question.
Sure, go
What
ahead.
was the kindergarten teacher's name?
Um,
You know what I'm talking about?
yes, I do know very well who you're talking about.
Were your kids there the first?
I didn't think I'd ever
First year.
forget her.
She was wonderful.
And it was interesting how we got,
Talk about her, if you can't remember.
yeah,
her, talk about it.
I just can't remember her name.
Was she preschool or kindergarten?
She was kindergarten. We never had preschool. We only had kindergarten. What was her name? Anyway, she was this great, loving person who had a very heavy accent. She was from a South American country. And the two of our three teachers we got because they were very good teachers, but they couldn't pass the test the teachers had to be given because they would only give it in English, and they wouldn't give it in Spanish. And so they were working on towards trying to master the English well enough to be able to pass that test, which they eventually did and went into public schools. But she was also very Catholic, and so the Catholic part of the children's life was important to her, and she really instilled that. They prayed a lot, and they had little statues and little grottos that they had in their room, and she was just so loving and kind to those kindergarten kids, because that was the year. Kindergarten year is one of the most important as far as instilling how to be a student, how to behave, what it means to be a learner, what it means to be learning 2 languages. And those are those beginning steps, and she really did know how to nurture those little ones through that.
Well, and as you're talking about your experiences, what an interesting range of students you have. I mean, you're talking about St. Mary's Academy, and you're talking about Escuela.
Right.
2 very
Exactly.
different environments.
And we, during those early years, did a lot together. We used to have sports day together. And the thing that we had to work on harder was getting St. Mary's kids going to Escuela. And we were always hit with the number crunches, because at Escuela there might have been 10 fourth graders, and at St. Mary's there were 45 fourth graders, and which fourth graders got to go from St. Mary's to Escuela. And so we had those struggles. But the parents at St. Mary's from the very beginning have been aware of Escuela and know about Escuela and are very supportive of it. And as a matter of fact, there have been several board members from St. Mary's who have become board members at Escuela, and parents from St. Mary's who have become board members at Escuela. So there's always been that sharing. And then especially when the Challenge Foundation started at St. Mary's, and several of the Escuela kids have gone through the Challenge Foundation through St. Mary's. That was another real connection between the 2 institutions.
Jean, Barrett, anything else that you would like to talk about?
I think that's about it.
Oh, I know there's
My
a lot more
memory.
to talk about.